You plug in a phone, flip a kitchen switch, and act like the outlet is a quiet reservoir of electricity, an invisible savings account that's always full. Because the grid is designed to hide how fragile that belief really is. The interface is frictionless on purpose, so your brain fills in the missing structure, a big tank somewhere, patiently waiting to serve you. But structurally, that reservoir is almost a mirage, because the system carries very little stored energy at grid scale. In fact, the EIA reports that U.S. utility-scale battery storage reached about 16 gigawatts at the end of 2023, just a bit over 1%, compared with roughly 1 on 200 gigawatts of total utility-scale generating capacity. What actually keeps your lights steady is not a stockpile, but a continent-spanning kinetic machine that has to balance generation and load in real time to hold a 60 Hz frequency. Grid operators continuously manage that balance. When supply falls short, frequency drops. And when supply exceeds demand, frequency rises, exactly as the EIA describes. And when a sudden load change hits, the NREL explains that the mismatch between electrical demand and mechanical turbine torque is bridged instantly by the generator's rotational inertia, kinetic energy, until the governor can adjust torque. So yes, flipping a kitchen switch effectively asks a turbine hundreds of miles away to push a little harder at that same millisecond, not metaphorically, but mechanically through synchronized rotation. Once you see it this way, the outlet stops looking like a battery and starts looking like a live feedback loop, stable only because it is constantly corrected. If you want to think more clearly about energy, stop picturing a tank and start picturing a spinning system that must be balanced right now. Then share that model with someone who still believes the wall is a warehouse. Most people treat the wall outlet like it's connected to some invisible reservoir, a calm, buffered supply that just waits for you to take what you want. That assumption feels natural because the interface is frictionless. You flip a switch and the light obeys, so your brain invents a storage tank behind the drywall. But structurally, the US grid barely has that kind of buffer at all. Utility-scale battery storage was about 16 gigawatts at the end of 2023, against roughly 1/200 gigawatts of total utility-scale generating capacity, a little over 1%. So the system doesn't serve you from a pile. It survives by continuously matching generation to load in real time. Grid operators hold the standard 60 Hz AC frequency by balancing supply and demand moment by moment, because a supply deficit pulls frequency down and an oversupply pushes it up. That means the grid behaves less like a reservoir and more like a single continent-spanning kinetic machine that must stay synchronized. In a synchronous grid, when load suddenly changes, there's an immediate mismatch between electrical demand and mechanical turbine torque, and the generator has to draw on its rotational inertia to bridge the gap. Only after that split-second kinetic loan can the governor adjust mechanical torque to restore balance and stabilize frequency. So when you flip a kitchen switch, you're not dipping into stored electricity. You're forcing distant rotating mass to respond right now. And the illusion of storage is really just the discipline of real-time control. Most people treat the wall outlet like it's a quiet reservoir, an invisible tank of electricity that just sits there waiting to be poured on demand. That assumption feels natural because the interface is frictionless. You flip a switch and the room obeys, so your brain files it under stored supply. But the US synchronous grid is built around a structural constraint that breaks that intuition. Operators must hold the system at 60 Hz by balancing generation and consumer load continuously in real time. If supply falls short, frequency drops. If supply runs long, frequency rises, so the grid is constantly correcting itself like a machine that cannot drift. Now here's the part people miss. When a sudden load change hits, electrical demand and mechanical turbine torque do not match in that instant. The generator bridges that gap by physically drawing on its rotational inertia, kinetic energy stored in the spinning mass, until the governor can add mechanical torque. So the buffer you thought was sitting in wires is in practice a continent-wide flywheel that must keep one exact RPM. When you click a kitchen switch, you're effectively grabbing the rim, and the system answers immediately by making a turbine hundreds of miles away work harder in that same moment. Once you see that, the outlet stops looking like a battery and starts looking like a single kinetic machine with a live feedback loop. And that's the insight worth sharing. The grid isn't storing your power for later. It's performing your demand in real time. Most people treat the wall outlet like it's a quiet reservoir. You take some electricity, the level drops somewhere, and nothing else really changes. That assumption isn't stupidity. It's a cognitive mirage created by a system designed to feel frictionless at the point of use. The structural anomaly is that the grid holds almost no electricity in reserve, so it can't behave like a giant battery, even if our intuition wants it to. In the US, operators maintain the standard 60 Hz AC frequency by continuously balancing generation with consumer load in real time. A supply deficit makes frequency fall, and an oversupply makes it rise. And despite all the talk of storage, utility-scale battery capacity was about 16 gigawatts at the end of 2023, just a bit over 1% of roughly 1,200 gigawatts of total U.S. utility-scale generating capacity. So the grid is better understood as a single, continent-spanning kinetic machine, not a warehouse of electrons waiting on shelves. When a sudden load change hits a synchronous grid, electrical demand instantly mismatches mechanical turbine torque, and the generator has to draw on its own rotational inertia, its kinetic energy, to bridge the gap until the governor can adjust. That means flipping a kitchen switch doesn't pull from storage, so much as it momentarily asks distant rotating steel to give up a sliver of speed, then forces turbines hundreds of miles away to push harder to restore balance. The outlet feels like a reservoir only because the feedback loop is fast enough to hide the balancing act from you. Once you see it, the mundane act of turning on a light becomes a real-time torque request propagating through a machine that must stay perched on a 60 Hz balance beam. Most people treat the wall outlet like a quiet reservoir, an invisible tank of electricity that will always be there when you ask. That assumption is convenient, and it's also a cognitive mirage the system quietly encourages because the interface hides the machinery. The structural anomaly is simple. The grid carries almost no stored energy, and utility-scale battery storage in the US was about 16 gigawatts at the end of 2023, just a little over 1% of roughly 1,500 gigawatts of total utility-scale generating capacity. What keeps your lights steady isn't a stockpile, but a continuous real-time balance that grid operators maintain at a 60 Hz AC standard. When demand exceeds supply, frequency drops. When supply exceeds demand, frequency rises, so the system is constantly correcting itself moment by moment. In a synchronous grid, a sudden load change creates an immediate mismatch between electrical demand and the turbine's mechanical torque. For an instant, the generator has to draw on its rotational inertia, kinetic energy, and spinning metal to bridge the gap and stabilize frequency until the governor can adjust mechanical input. So, when you flip a kitchen switch, you're not pulling from storage. You're issuing a live torque request that forces some turbine, potentially hundreds of miles away, to spin harder in that same moment. Tonight, flip one switch on purpose and remember, the grid isn't a reservoir with stockpiles. It's a real-time 60 Hz balancing act with barely over 1% utility-scale battery storage. Treat every watt like a physical nudge to a continent-spanning machine, then share this reservoir mirage with someone who still thinks the outlet is a battery.